In this video, we're going to discuss a brief summary of trigonometric functions and their derivatives. We'll be looking only at the most common trig functions and their associated first derivatives. Suppose we have f of x equals sine x. The first derivative, f prime of x, is cosine of x. If f of x is equal to tan x, our first derivative is equal to secant squared of x. If we let f of x equal secant x, the first derivative, f prime of x, is secant x tan x. If f of x is equal to cosine of x, then f prime of x is equal to negative sine of x. When f of x is equal to cotangent of x, f prime of x is equal to negative cosecant square of x. And finally, if f of x is equal to cosecant of x, f prime of x is equal to negative cosecant of x cotangent of x. Let's take a look at an example. Suppose we wish to find the derivative of f of x equal to negative 4 secant x plus tangent x. The derivative of secant of x is secant x tangent x. So our first piece becomes negative 4 secant of x tangent of x. And the derivative of tangent of x becomes secant square of x. That's it. Let's look at one more, slightly longer example. Suppose we have f of x is equal to 1 plus sine of x divided by x plus cosine of x. The first thing I would do is label the functions in the numerator and denominator of our expression. So let's let g of x equal 1 plus sine of x, and we'll let h of x equal x plus cosine of x. This means the derivative of 1 plus cosine of x, we'll call that g of x. 1 plus sine of x, getting ahead of myself here, is equal to cosine of x. And the derivative of h of x, we'll call h prime of x. That's equal to 1 plus sine of x. Our original function is set up as a ratio And so we'll be using our quotient rule. The quotient rule tells us that we take h of x times g prime of x minus g of x times h prime of x all over h of x squared. Plugging in our values, we get 1 plus, we get h plus cosine of x times g prime of x, which is cosine of x, minus 1 plus sine of x, just following our formula here. Now we're looking at h prime of x, where h prime of x is equal to 1 plus sine of x. And this is all over 1 plus sine of x squared. And I want to note that I incorrectly identified h prime of x as 1 plus sine of x. Because the derivative of cosine is negative sine, h prime of x is actually 1 minus sine of x. Okay, so on the next page, here we are with our quotient rule all set up. All that's left now is to simplify. If I distribute cosine of x across both terms, I get h cosine of x plus cosine squared x minus 1 minus sine squared x, since we have 1 minus sine x times 1 minus sine x in our numerator. Again, this is all divided by x plus cosine of x squared. Removing our parentheses, we have x cosine of x plus cosine squared x minus 1 plus sine squared of x, remembering to distribute our negative here, all over x plus cosine x squared. Now here I recognize that we have one of our trig identities. I know that cosine squared of x plus sine squared of x is equal to 1. So I can rewrite our quotient as x cosine of x plus 1 minus 1 all over x plus cosine of x squared. Our positive and negative 1 cancel out. And our final result is x cosine of x divided by x plus cosine of x squared. This concludes our example. I hope you found it helpful, and we'll see you next time.